Hey guys, welcome to the first official lesson by Imaginary Axiom. We're your online math and science tutor channel, and we're specifically geared towards your average high school student. I'm your host for this video. My name is Mrigank, and without wasting time, let's get started on our first lesson. Now, today's lesson is about polynomials. So, what exactly is a polynomial? Am I right? We don't really learn this in grade 8, and this is a completely new thing in grade 9. So let's define it. We will define a polynomial as such: an algebraic expression which is made up of one or more terms. Now, the terms can either be constants or they can be variables, or they can be some combination of both. It doesn't matter. And they're usually separated by addition or subtraction operators. So let's actually write down an example of a polynomial. We'll write a polynomial with only one term. For example, we can write 2x. That is a polynomial because it has a variable and it has a coefficient. But it doesn't necessarily need to have multiple terms. It can have only one. Let's write down another one. Let's write down 3x plus 5. That's a polynomial as well. But we'll get into specific terminologies about a polynomial in a second. Let's write down just one more example. Let's write down 4y plus 2x. That actually is a polynomial. Yes, it has more than one variable. That's true, but it's still a polynomial because it has variables and it's made up of one or more terms, and they, in this case, are separated by addition operators. So these are polynomials. What exactly don't make the cut and don't qualify as polynomials? Well, something like 1 over x. That doesn't qualify as a polynomial. What's another one? Let's say you want to do something like 2 to the x. That's not a polynomial. Neither is just a simple 2 to the exponent of x. That's not a polynomial either. Remember, it is an expression, and only an algebraic expression made up of one or more terms, and the variable has to be a base. The variable cannot be an exponent. Or, in this case of 1 over x, it cannot be a negative exponent. Polynomials always have positive exponents. And you'll later on learn why 1 over x is technically a negative exponent. So, let's move on to exactly the 3 types of polynomials that are most common. You're going to have your monomials, your binomials, and your trinomials. What exactly is a monomial? Well, that was the first example that we just gave you. Let's write down a monomial, 2x. You know what? You can also write another monomial like this. Try 4x squared. That's a monomial as well because you only have one term. The term here is identified by the variable itself, nothing more. Since it's not separated by an addition or subtraction operator, it counts as one term. You know what? 5 is also a term on its own. Yeah, just the number 5 by itself. Do you know why? Because, 5 can be written like 5 times x to the 0th exponent. Now, this is a little messy right here. Don't be confused by that middle x. That's a multiplication sign. Now, the reason why this works is because anything to the exponent of 0, anything, doesn't matter if it's a number or a variable, it always equals to 1. So when you write it down as 5 times 1, Well, that's just 5. So you still get a single term. That's why, technically, if you were to write it out as a variable, 5 still works as a monomial and as a term. Now, binomial. Well, mono means 1. Bi means 2. So take a guess. What do you think this term is going to have? How many terms will this binomial have? 2. Quite easy. But remember, they have to be separated by addition or subtraction signs. 2x plus y right here. That is a binomial. Why? Because you have one term. And you have your second term. 2x is your first, y is your second. 2 terms means it's a binomial. Great. What about a trinomial? I think you can figure out the pattern here. Tri means what? 3. So in this case, if we write something like 2x plus y plus z, well, 2x on its own is a term, y on its own is a term, and z on its own is a term. We have 3 terms. It's a trinomial. Great. So now that you know the essentials about polynomials themselves, because remember, trinomial is 3 terms, but polynomials, that just means many numbers. And so polynomials have more than 3 terms just by themselves. It gets confusing because I just said, wait a minute, polynomials have 1 or more terms, but a monomial is just a type of polynomial. Same thing with a binomial and a trinomial. They're just different types. But now that we actually know a little bit about polynomials, let's put that knowledge to good use. Let's go on and learn about like terms. Like terms can be easily thought of as such. Terms that tend to like each other will stay together. Easy? So let's have an example of like terms. Let's say you have a binomial here. Well, you have 2x plus 3x. That's a binomial. But you know what? You can simplify that. If you have 2 x's and 3 x's, and you add them together, this is, come on, grade 1 mathematics, you have 5x. Those are like terms. Why? Because look at the exponent. You never write something with an exponent of 1. You only actually add the exponent sign when you have a higher degree or a higher order of an exponent. I just said a word that you might not know. I said degree. Now, degree, it can easily be explained by stating this. If you have a polynomial, the variable with the highest exponent will give you the degree of the polynomial. For example, so let's have an example here. Let's write 4x cubed. So of course, you know when you cube things, you take them to the exponent of 3 plus 3x squared plus, let's just write 1. Well, the degree of this polynomial is 3. Look at it. What is the highest exponent of our variable x? You have the highest exponent being 3. So that just tells you that for the entire polynomial, your degree is 3. Now, wait a minute. What in the world does that have to do with like and unlike terms? Well, for like terms, you can only add them if you meet 2 criteria. The first criteria is essentially going to be, they have to be 1, the same variable. It makes no sense if you add x plus y. You can't simplify that because you don't know what x is, and you don't know what y is. It'd be madness. You'd never be able to figure it out. But if they're the same variables, if you have an x and you have an x, well, you already know the value of x if it's given to you. And if you don't, then you know that since both of them are the same variable, they have the same value. So you can add them together. But before you do that, there's a second rule that needs to be taken into consideration. You know what the second rule states? they have to have the same exponent. It doesn't work if you don't have the same exponent, because we know what exponents do. They change up the value after the exponent has performed the operation, right? If you say 3x squared, as you see on the screen, 3x squared, well, that x is being squared. So if we give the value of x 2, well, 2 squared is 4. Is that the same thing as stating just the variable x with an exponent of 1? Because if you plug in the value 2, you get 2. It's the same value. But if you change up the exponent, the value changes. So, like terms can only be added or subtracted when they have the same variable and they have the same exponent. So here's a quick example. Let's look at 3x squared plus 4x plus 7x plus y. Okay, so this is our new polynomial here, and it works. Sure, we have multiple variables. That's okay. A polynomial allows that. So wait a minute. This makes no sense. You have x squared, and you have 2 singular x's. Do you think you can add them together? Of course not. So we have to just do one thing. Let's rewrite this by putting the 3x squared by itself. There's nothing for us to add it with. Plus, well, you have a 4x and a 7x. Those two can definitely be added. You know that the coefficients don't matter. You just have to look at the variable and the exponent. Is it the same variable? Yes, so check. Same exponent? Yes, so check. That means, since we've satisfied both criteria, add them together. 4 plus 7, that just becomes 11. But why is the problem here? You really can't put y into anything. Y is not the same variable as x, so it fails on the first criteria. That means you have to write y by itself, so a plus y. That's going to be the simplified version of the first polynomial, 3x squared plus 4x plus 7x plus y. That's your simplified formula. Well, guys, that's all for the lesson today. Our next lesson will revolve around the distributive law, multiplying polynomials this time. And we're going to be launching our new website real soon. But with it, you can view our entire curriculum we'll be teaching you. All right, we'll see you later.